Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Dentzel Domain on Red State Talk Radio. I am your host, Ed Dentzel, and just about the time I'm talking on this show about how beautiful it has been in Madeira Beach, we got a complete deluge yesterday. Complete deluge. It was unpleasant last night driving up to trivia. And, my dad and I were talking. Florida's a pretty flat state. If you don't know, the highest point in Florida, natural point I should say, is like about 300 feet above sea level. It's like a football field. You go to your next football game come September, and you look at the football field, it's 300 feet long without the end zones. You put it up on its side into the sky, that's as high as Florida gets at any one point in this entire state. So as my dad was pointing out, Mom and Dad are from Pennsylvania, lots of hills, get a lot of rain there as well. He says it's so flat there's nowhere for the water to go. It's just kind of where it hits is where it sits. And he's right. And I think there's some bad engineering that goes on as well. Florida gets a lot of rain. Of course, hurricane season. But then it'll get a dry season, then it'll start raining again. But you can cruise around and you can see where the water's not draining, and you just wonder, how does that happen? You know it's going to rain. Like when I lived in Las Vegas, you just know it's going to rain 4 or 5 times a year, and eventually Las Vegas figured out what they needed to do to keep the streets from flooding. And there was a big difference between when I moved there in 1998 to when I moved in 2011. The way they managed rainwater greatly improved. But you kind of understand if you have some washed out streets there, because how much money do you really want to put into something that only occurs 5 times a year? Here in Florida, it's a little bit of the same. They get way more rain. They should be prepared for it. And a lot of streets, especially out here on the Gulf Coast, don't seem to be. It's just kind of strange. You can email me at edwarddentzel@reagan.com, and then you can also follow me on Twitter, Dentzel Domain, all one word, no space in between. Now let's get right to the show. I always like to start out my shows with a little personal observation, something that's going on in my life, family, disc golf, trivia, just a random observation outside the realm of politics. I love to start the show off with that if you're new to the show. So let's get right to it. I was listening to a podcast, and I've been meaning to talk. I had talked about being in the Democrat shoes regarding Hillary and Bernie a couple days ago. But I was listening to a podcast on Ricochet.com, one of my favorite websites. I have a lot of good shows there, a lot of good podcasts having to do with money, with law, pop culture, just general topics of the United States. I would urge you to check that site out, and if you think it's worth it, I think you should join and become a member there so you can comment. It's one of these sites where you just can't go in and start writing. You actually have to be a member there and pay a little money per month to do that. But most of their shows, their podcasts, are free. And I was listening to their what they call their main Ricochet podcast with James Lilacs, Rob Long, and Peter Robinson. And they interviewed Monica Crowley. And I like Monica Crowley. Don't know a lot about her. I know I've heard her on the radio once in a while. I'm sure I've seen her on TV a few times. I know that I've read some articles of hers. Can't say I really have anything bad to say about her. Not, I guess, on the A tier of conservative political journalists out there, I would say. But definitely, I guess, B tier. She's not Charles Krauthammer, you know what I mean? She's not Thomas Sowell, somebody like that. She's just in that kind of undercard, but she's making a living for herself. Fine by me. But she, on this podcast where she was being interviewed, she just went off on a tangent. And I'm afraid that too many conservatives are also thinking like that. And I just want to temper your expectations. Because I think that, and I'm not saying they let her get away with that on the show, but they didn't give her as hard a time as I think they should have regarding this. Like I said, she's a well-known conservative. I'm going to guess that she's on Fox News, even though, I don't watch Fox News since I don't have TV. So people know who she is. But she's saying that she is still under the impression that eventually Joe Biden, the Democrat ticket is going to be Joe Biden and Elizabeth Warren. She said that on that podcast. And the podcast, I think, came out Wednesday maybe, and I heard it yesterday. She's crazy. Once again, you can't look at this topic from our point of view. You have to get into the shoes of a Democrat and really think about this seriously. Here's what I know. Here's what I think I know. All these stories about Hillary Clinton, the FBI investigating her, all of that. I just cannot see. And I say this knowing that if it happens, it will be like the biggest political story, probably since Watergate. In something regarding an official, a well-known official. Of course, she's not technically a politician anymore, but a well-known person in office or running for office and has charges brought against him or her. That's in which it actually has something to do with the crime. This isn't like Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky and that. This is something having to do with how government works, what is legal and illegal regarding how to handle government. It would be that big, in my opinion, bigger than Iran-Contra, which really in the end went nowhere. You have to put a politician running for president of the United States and then getting indicted or having charges brought against her for the mishandling of top secret information to the point where it might have been stolen by other countries, some enemies, some not enemies. That's a huge story. Now, I know Democrats maybe don't necessarily believe that's what happened. But if charges like that are brought against Hillary Clinton, it will be as big as Watergate. And we know what happened there. So first you have to understand the magnitude of that story, of what it could be. And when you start understanding that we haven't had a story in American politics like that in 40 years, over 40 years, you understand the odds of something like that happening, because we all know there have been a lot of politicians who have made a lot of stupid mistakes over the years and done things they shouldn't have done. Made bad decisions. Whether it's something with drinking and driving or worse. Having to actually do with governing. But you have to understand the leaking of secrets and the mishandling of top secret information is much bigger than politicians taking bribes to get this bridge built here so it helps out this business and build this road and buy this land and anything like that. And if this would be bigger than any other problem that the Clintons have had in the last 20 years, and they've had plenty. You have to put it in that context. Now, having said all that, do you think that the FBI wants to get involved in something like that? Think about it. See, I think that there was a window of opportunity for the FBI or whoever else is involved in this, to bring charges against her before it got to this point. They could have, had they worked faster, and of course, if Hillary and others had been more forthcoming, I know that's part of it, and I want to get into that in a second. That had they done this or gotten far enough, say in August or September, I could have seen, of 2015, I could have seen them bringing charges. There's no campaigns that started yet. Of course, on the Democrat side, no debates had started yet. Iowa was a long way off. 2016 was a long way off. New Hampshire was a long way off. There were still people talking about Joe Biden getting involved, Elizabeth Warren getting involved. Maybe there were a few others, names that popped up, Andrew Cuomo or somebody like that, last summer into the early fall. But we're into it now. We're into it now. And I just, no matter what the political persuasions are of the people doing, and we know, hey, FBI agents are not robots. They vote too. They're pro-life, they're pro-choice, they're for Obamacare, they're against Obamacare. They all have their political leanings as well. And we all know how tough it is for all of us out here to put our political leanings to the side and doing many things. Take those beliefs very personally. But even I would think the most conservative of FBI agents who may be on this case would see the issues with bringing charges against a woman who, odds on, is going to get the Democrat nomination. And how that would appear as how it would affect the election process, to the point where it might provoke others to get involved, and having not taken place any part in Iowa, in New Hampshire, and any other states that could pop up before this charges were brought against Hillary Clinton. I know over here in conservative land on our side, we see that as some sort of fantasy. And I think that's why Monica Crowley, when she was talking about it, seemed to be so energetic about it. It's a great story. It's great theater. It's great. It'd be a great soap opera. But I just could not see it happening. I just can't. I know that's what we want to believe. But I'm also thinking about it. You know, there's another part to this that I said I was going to get to, is this. Hillary Clinton knows what she did. And she's made enough contradictory statements over the past months. I mean, even this past weekend, she can't even do an interview with George Stephanopoulos without creating contradictions in her statements. That's how bad it's gotten for her. And she's not going to get an easier interview than George Stephanopoulos. It's just not going to happen. She could have an interview done by her daughter, and it probably wouldn't go as easy. But there she was saying that, yes, I know that I'm not supposed to have, this information, whether I have it or not. It's not supposed to be easily accessed. But on the other hand, whether it's marked or not, but then she's saying, well, it should have been marked. And that's her excuse for her not knowing that it wasn't classified. It's contradictory. And I don't want to go back through the whole thing of how this all started. But can you understand that the FBI does not want to get involved in this? We know that how much the Supreme Court, the statements that it has made over the years about how it wants to stay out of elections. Simply because there is a view out there that the court has become politicized. And see, I would say it's become politicized because of politicians who want to bring the court into the politics. And dare I say it, there have been enough Supreme Court justices, maybe on both sides, that can't resist also the opportunity to get into the politics as well. Once again, Supreme Court justices, they're human too. And this goes way back. Probably the case that probably stands out the most is Gore versus Bush in 2000. starting there in the last 15 years. So if the Supreme Court says that it would like to get out of the politics of what's going on, then the FBI, I think, feels the same way. And what worse way to stay out of politics than bringing charges against somebody who's running for the highest, who could be running for the highest office in the United States? That's part of it. There's also part of it, I'm thinking, bringing up Hillary Clinton, is she knows what she did. And she knows, I think, that she's treading a very precarious line there. And there's a part of me, I have to admit, that's thinking she's probably really happy that she's running a presidential campaign right now, because it's the best defense against the FBI bringing any charges against her. Right? If she was just a commoner, if she had just decided not to run this time, and maybe never run ever, then it would be different. She'd just be a citizen like you or me, and the chips would fall where they may, to use a horrible cliche, and she might get charged. She may get charged. She might not get charged. Maybe she'd just get a slap on the wrist, a fine. But any of that now, with her running for president of the United States, would be portrayed as being political. And the FBI knows it. And not just that it would be political, but they know that they would be damaging one of the political parties in the United States, and it could affect the election in November. It just would, no matter what anybody says. Now, I realize that Hillary Clinton brought this on herself. But I'm not sure, as much as I don't like the Democrats, I'm not sure the Democratic Party brought this on themselves. And I'm sure that's going to be a consideration the FBI is going to make. I know that. I mean, we wouldn't just think, well, if a person does something wrong, they should be charged. Our politicians are not royalty. I know. But it would not surprise me that if the FBI waits until what goes on in the election before it makes a final decision. Now, if she gets elected president, I guess it gets even more complicated. But you know what? Then it would be on the Democrats, because now they voted for somebody that they knew had charges that might come against her, and it's a big deal. Once again, this isn't some sort of bribe that we think goes on in politics anyway. This is something that's much different than that. This is a topic that a lot of most politicians, 99.9% of politicians, have never been charged with this. I'm sure we can go back through history and find a couple politicians that got some top secret information and flubbed it in the days before the internet, before email. It's probably happened. Left a file somewhere, went out to a bar, left something somewhere. I'm sure that that's happened over the years. But it's very, very rare. But then it's on the Democrat Party and Democrats if they choose to elect somebody that might have done something like this. And see, I think that would be different. But right now, she doesn't have the nomination, but she is running for it. I just think that there's some sort of, it just feels to me like there's some sort of fine line there. That the real people who are going to be hurt by bringing charges against Hillary Clinton is going to be the Democrat Party and your average Democrat out there. Yes, it's Hillary Clinton who may go to jail. I still don't see that happening. Either way. In any case. She's not gonna wear an orange suit, even though she should, I think. But we have to keep this all in perspective, and there is a bigger picture here. And I just have to say that just because she gets charged, I mean, that might even, and that would be probably the turning point, it could be Democrats might even come to her defense even more than they already do. And once again, then they would be buying into it. Because at this point, this is just something that she has done. They want to claim that she didn't do it. We claim that she did. She claims that she didn't. And we can both live in our worlds for now. But once the charges happen, then the positions are going to be staked out, and the FBI knows that's going to be trouble. It's going to be trouble. So getting back to Monica Crowley, that she so easily markets this idea, it just tells me that there must be a lot of conservatives out there, people who know her, follow her, like her, that think the same way. And I just think she just, I guess you have to listen to it. She talks about it as if she was just talking about, excited about it, how beautiful a day it is out. It's sunny, it's 73 degrees. And it's like she doesn't understand the magnitude of the story that she's selling. And I think to do that, I think to accurately tell this story about how Hillary Clinton could get indicted, you have to put it in the context of how big a story it would be and how rare it is. Richard Nixon, what happened to him is rare. Just rare. He's the only president who's resigned from office. And Hillary Clinton would be the first possible presidential hopeful, well into the process, that is charged with a crime against the people of the United States. This isn't like Gary Hart cheating on his wife or whatever else. This is much different than when he was thought as being the great hope for the Democrats back in the 80s. And then he dared reporters to follow him around. Well, guess what? They took him up on it. They caught him cheating. This Hillary Clinton and what she's involved in here is thousands, if not millions of times a bigger deal. So you just can't handle it and look at it like some of these other cases where politicians have gotten in trouble, or there are charges that might be brought against them. So I think we're deluding ourselves a bit. What I expect to happen is that there's going to be an investigation. They're going to say that, yes, Hillary Clinton did some wrong things, but I think that's as far as it's going to go. Now, I've told you, I've even said, well, you know what? Could be that the FBI wants to bring charges. Barack Obama calls Hillary Clinton to the White House and says, here's the way it's going to go, Hillary. You can either continue to run, and the FBI is going to bring these charges against you, or you can withdraw from running for president, and I can make these FBI charges go away. I can still see that, I guess, because I think that's the kind of guy Barack Obama is. It would be the ultimate revenge on the Clintons, which is something that I still think that he wants, and that would lend you to believe that he's just going to allow the FBI to go where it wants. On the other hand, Democrats know, you know what? After January, whatever it is next year, Barack Obama's gone. He's going to have no sway at the government level anymore. Now, he may do something else. Maybe somebody will appoint him to the Supreme Court. Maybe the Democrat, if it's a Democrat, will support Barack Obama. We'll just have to wait to see how that happens. Of course, I hope not. But I think the Democrats are going to be thinking long-term, and it could be a point where Barack Obama could offer Hillary that deal, and a bunch of Democrats are going to say, whoa, 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 if they find out about it. Debbie Wasserman Schultz, we know she's a big Hillary supporter, and she's battled Barack Obama a few times over the past few years. Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Barack Obama are not friends. And she may say, whoa, 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 we can't do that. You can't do that. And so you may see this kind of crack up on the Democrat side, but it would be because the FBI plans to do something. And I don't think that the FBI wants to get in the business of cracking up a Democrat party because of one particular Democrat. Now, if she becomes president, and then I think it's something different. Then she's going to be in a position where she did this, and maybe she continues to do this. And that would cause even bigger problems. But once again, then the Democrats voted for it, knowing that these charges were a possibility, and then they're just going to have to own up to it. But to think that the FBI is going to create a situation where they take out with these charges Hillary Clinton, and then it's just Bernie Sanders running uncontested, and then Joe Biden, it would, I dare I say it, it would be an automatic win for Republicans in November. So I also know that's what causes a lot of you to think about that. You fantasize about it. And that's probably why Monica Crowley has gotten so much attention for this particular story that she's marketing out there. I mean, there would be so many disgruntled Democrats, fans of Hillary Clinton, who would stay home in November. There's no doubt in my mind about that. No doubt in my mind. And how would those Bernie Sanders supporters feel? He's the guy. He's legitimately running. There's no FBI charges against him. And then suddenly Joe Biden just comes in and kicks him out. Here's Bernie Sanders has spent all of this money, put this framework together, has gone and done all of these speeches. And then Joe Biden and Elizabeth Warren just come in without spending any money and doing any speeches and having to put their ideas to the test of the voters in Iowa, in New Hampshire, South Carolina, and Nevada, and wherever else they're going to go. I mean, really. But see, this is the part that Monica Crowley doesn't talk about. She doesn't talk about that part because the more you get into the minutia of it, the more you understand that the odds of this happening, it's almost not even worth talking about. And I wouldn't be talking about it if somebody else wasn't trying to convince you otherwise. But being that she's on a popular conservative, probably one of the most popular conservative podcasts out there at Ricochet.com, I know that it has thousands and thousands and thousands of listeners. That story is going to start to spread. Hey, did you hear what Monica Crowley said? I'm sorry, guys. I don't want to get your hopes up. Once again, it could happen. I'm just trying to give you lots of reasons why it couldn't happen. Why it couldn't happen. I guess I win either way. If she doesn't get indicted, I guess I'm right, I win. If she does get indicted, then the Democrats are hurting, I win again. But I just can't see it. Elizabeth Warren, to me, it seems like she's been out of the spotlight quite a bit in the last few months. I guess since the Democrat debate started. Joe Biden, he was there for the State of the Union speech. I don't know what he's been doing. I think that to think that they would replace Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders with those two, you underestimate the framework that it takes, the preparation that it takes. And I'm just not so sure that I know Elizabeth Warren liked. I know I can go to the Daily Cause and read a lot of nice things about her. And I know that Joe Biden is liked, but isn't this kind of just like people, you know, the most favorite player on a football team is the second string quarterback. He's the backup. And everybody loves him until he goes into the game. Then they find out he stinks, and they want the real guy back. This is what kind of be like with this Democrat situation would kind of be like that football situation. That's one more reason I just don't think it's going to happen. But you're listening to the Dentzel Domain on Red State Talk Radio.
You're listening to Red State Talk Radio, America's premier conservative talk radio network.
You critics don't define our honor. You try to shame us for doing our job. You teach children to fear us, crowds to attack us, and good people to doubt us. But we will never back down from our sworn duty to uphold the Constitution of the United States of America. We wake up every day, put on our badge, strap a gun to our hips, kiss our families goodbye, and put our lives between the law-abiding and any criminal who threatens their rights. We serve people of every color and creed, men, women, and children in violent, dangerous neighborhoods, because they have the same right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness as CEOs, movie stars, and the political elite. We are Americans, and we are the American police officer. We stand with the National Rifle Association of America, and the NRA stands with us. Together, we're freedom's safest place.
I know. We Christians are just as bad as Muslims who fly planes into buildings and video themselves sawing people's heads off and beheading kids and mutilating women and shooting people who draw cartoons. That's right. You better be just as wary of us Christians, because we don't mess around. Don't be insulting our Jesus, because you think Muslims are bad. Oh, man, don't push us. You think the Muslims are bad when they prey on people for insulting Muhammad? You're really going to get it when Christians pray for you for insulting Jesus.
It could be easy to take what we have for granted and not appreciate everything the men and women of law enforcement do for us every day. So to all my heroes out there, I just want to say thank you.
Thank you for protecting my family,
my business,
my kids,
our community.
Thank you for listening to us,
for being there for me, for keeping me safe.
To all those in law enforcement, thank you.
This is Primo Mondoni, host of the Red State Town Hall. Join me Sundays at 11 p.m. Eastern on Red State Talk Radio, the dominant force in conservative internet talk radio. So, lock it in and rip the knob off.
This is Paul Preston, host of Agenda 21 Radio. Join me Monday through Friday on Red State Talk Radio, the dominant force in conservative internet talk radio. So lock it in and rip the knob off.
We're back at the Dentzel Domain on Red State Talk Radio. During the break, I came up with a pretty good example regarding Hillary Clinton and this whole Monica Crowley story and her interview on Ricochet. Imagine if it was Donald Trump. We know how crazy his supporters are. He can say anything, he can do anything, they support him. What do you think would happen if the FBI brought charges against him? Do you think that automatically all of his supporters would say, "Oh, can't believe he did that. Yep, we're going to have to dump him." Do you think that he would say that? They would say that? I personally do not. What I think I know about them, I think that they would just say the charges are false, it's a fraud, the FBI is politically motivated, the FBI wants Ted Cruz to win, it wants Jeb Bush to win, it wants Marco Rubio to win. No matter how much proof the FBI would have, his supporters would say that. This is why I don't get into idol worship. So Hillary's supporters, I think they'd be the same way. And dare I say it, if it was Bernie Sanders supporters and he was the one that had the charges being brought against him, or could have charges brought against him, they'd be the same way. And that kind of feelings about their particular man or woman, it just wouldn't go away. It just wouldn't go away. They'd think that they got ripped off, just like Trump supporters would be. They'd think that the Bushes are behind this. The RNC, the establishment, they're behind this. And they'd all sit home. Now, maybe they're going to sit home anyway if Donald Trump doesn't get the nomination. But then they're doing it, well, we know why they're doing it. And that's not unusual. People are sitting home because of their frustrations with politics and their particular man or woman not getting in. They're sitting home all the time. But something like this, where the charges are pretty easily to understand. I mean, it doesn't get any easier than email was on a private server instead of a protected server, and it might have gotten into the hands of America's enemies. That's a story that's easy to understand because we all have email. We know sometimes we get viruses. Sometimes we know we get hacked. It's a very easy story to understand. It's the very reason that the email controversy has had more legs than Benghazi has had with Hillary Clinton. But would the FBI bring charges against Donald Trump in 2016 if he was the front runner, knowing what it would do to the Republican Party? Now, we as conservatives, Republicans would say, yeah, they do because they hate us. Maybe. Well, guess what? You know what Democrats think? The Democrats think the FBI hates them, too. Are they wrong? I don't know. So when you put it in that context, well, you flip it around and make it a popular Republican, a popular guy outside of politics who has obviously very energetic support, you can see why the FBI would be treading very lightly. And that's just the way it is. I'm going to talk about it if it pops up. That's what I'm going to do. I just hope I don't have to continue to come to this microphone and temper your expectations. I know I do that quite a bit. But this is a story that I think has gotten out of hand. It's gotten a little too crazy, too much alternative history, twisting things one way or the other. Now, I should grant you something. I know that Hillary Clinton is not Bill Clinton. You've heard me say that many times. Her favorable, unfavorable ratings are not very good. They're not. And Bernie Sanders, I think, is seen as a guy who, if he were to win the outright nomination on the Democrat side, that he would get killed in, not literally, figuratively, lose in the presidential election, no matter who the Republican was. Maybe. But at least then they're losing on their own merits, on the strength of their arguments, their campaigns, and whether they can get Democrats to the polls or not in November. But I can't imagine that Hillary people, Bernie people, no matter if they even like Joe Biden, Elizabeth Warren, if it were to go down like that, FBI comes in, charges her, then the Democrat Party, the DNC starts getting nervous about Bernie Sanders. They pull him off to the side. Hey, Bernie, we're going to end your campaign right here. That is a disaster. It just was not. It would just be the law getting involved in the center of politics. Maybe it should, considering the charges, but I just don't think it's going to happen. It's a flaw of our system that something like this can happen. And it puts many different people in difficult situations. I know that it seems easy to say, well, the moral thing to do is if that's what she did, then she's going to get charged and just let it happen. But we know we wouldn't be feeling that way if it was a Republican. would know that there would be bigger implications than Donald Trump not getting the nomination or not not getting the nomination. It would be if it was Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, any of these three guys who are right at the top right now. We know that there would be long time fallout from something like this. And we wouldn't be cheering for the rule of law. We wouldn't be. Even though we'd believe in it, we wouldn't, because we'd be thinking, oh, here we go. We're going to get Hillary Clinton just because of something Donald Trump did. Yeah, he did what was wrong, but does the FBI have to get involved now? And so that's why I'm just trying to look at it from a non-political point of view, and knowing that the FBI, if I'm thinking about it, then the FBI is thinking about it. Now, if they have the courage to do it, then I guess I have to just slap them on the back and say, way to go, guys and girls. And then the Republican side, guess what? The nomination on the Republican side, it just gets that more interesting. And it even becomes a bigger deal because the odds of whoever gets the Republican nomination becoming president increases greatly. Not just because Hillary Clinton wouldn't be the nominee, but because of all the dysfunction that they would then have on the Democrat side. And I would hope that if that happens on the Democrat side, that we can make sure that Donald Trump doesn't become president, because then we would have a huge chance here. Really doing something, because it wouldn't just hurt the run for president, whoever the Democrats would put up, but it would hurt down ballot too. It would. It would throw the prospects of the Democrats taking over the Senate into turmoil. Heck, Republicans might even pick up a couple more seats in the Senate, maybe some good conservatives. In the House, might even increase their distance in the House. You know, the distance they have between the number of Republicans and Democrats. Maybe we get a few more conservative Republicans in the House. Maybe we get a better guy for her Speaker of the House. I mean, it would just spread in so many directions that I would hope there would be such great possibilities that I hope we wouldn't ruin it on Donald Trump. Let's move on to something else. Ted Cruz. Real quick story about Ted Cruz. Did you see this video of him standing there and a sign almost falling on him, and just within seconds he came up with a little joke about it, about his campaign and everything? See, you know that I am kind of a predetermined to like Ted Cruz because he's the most conservative of the candidates. That's why I like him. It's not hero worship. It's just a guy that's in line with my values. I've told you that I could easily vote for Marco Rubio. You may not like me because of that, because of his stance on immigration. I've told you that I'm not going to vote for Donald Trump. So it's 2 out of 3 for me of the leaders right now. And I've told you I'd take a good look at Chris Christie as well, but I don't think he's going anywhere. Carly Fiorina, I'd give her a shot too, but they're not going anywhere. Donald Trump, Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz. It's going to be one of those 3 guys. But I like seeing this with Ted Cruz, this little video, because everybody says, oh, he's so canned. Everything seems so planned. It's so contrived. And then you see a video that wasn't planned, that was like a little bit of a mistake. Something almost hit him on the head, and he's able to make a joke about it within seconds. I like that. It shows that somewhere down within this, I don't know, like I said, somewhat plastic presentation that Ted Cruz can have at times, there does live a real person who can joke at himself and can create a little bit of humor, and it's not from one of his speechwriters. I like that. In fact, I would say that's been one of the problems with Barack Obama. Despite him being a liberal and a liberal kook, has no sense of humor. All right? I saw that when I watched that interview he did with Jerry Seinfeld. Doesn't have a lot of that self-deprecating. Now, granted, he did say a thing about his big ears, but he said in the context that's what kids say about him. Remember that? And even then, you don't know how much of that show was scripted, that were given lines to Barack Obama. I'm hoping Jerry Seinfeld wouldn't go along with that, but who knows? That's what worries me about Donald Trump. There's the story out there that he's even worried people have made fun of his fingers because they're stubby. I don't know if I've ever paid attention to his fingers. But there's a story out there from a few years ago. Just a guy who can't make fun of himself. Very insecure. We do not need another person like that in the White House. No matter what their political affiliation is their particular political affiliation is, no matter what party, no matter how conservative or liberal they are, we don't need a person like that. At least in George W. Bush's case, despite him not being conservative, he was a guy who could laugh at himself. And he could make fun of the way he talks, and he knew the jokes that were made about him, and he really just didn't care that much. And that's what I see. I see a little bit of that in Ted Cruz. And you know what? That may be one more of the reasons that other senators don't like him. Because you know what? Most politicians do not self-deprecate. They're so worried about their opponent cutting it into some 30-second ad for the next election cycle. Making some stupid joke or doing something stupid. It's why they're so handled. That's why it's so, you never feel like from these politicians that they're genuine. And then you see Ted Cruz just in those few 15 seconds, 20 seconds. And you kind of catch him without the spotlights on him, not on a stage, not with a microphone. He just seems like a regular guy, despite how he may come across otherwise. And that gives me hope. I have no reason, like with Marco Rubio, I think he's probably that kind of guy too. But Donald Trump is not. And I even have it written in my notes here. It's weird to me that we as Americans, we really like comedy. Some of the most popular shows that have ever been on TV are comedies. Seinfeld, Cheers, All in the Family, Three's Company, all these sitcoms, Friends, Everybody Loves Raymond. Huge ratings over the years. Granted, we like all sorts of forms of entertainment, but comedy is part of our culture. And so it's weird to me when people support guys or women who don't seem to have a sense of humor. Because we know in our daily lives, what's the kind of person you like the best, like the most? Forget about politics, everything else. Person doesn't take himself too seriously. Isn't afraid to make fun of himself or herself once in a while. Maybe they're short, maybe they're fat, maybe their hair's weird. They just don't take themselves that seriously. They just go through life doing what they can do, good people, just making fun of themselves. They're the easiest people to be around. The fact is, those Donald Trumps and Barack Obamas in our lives are the people that drive us nuts because they take everything so seriously, and anything said against them is seen as some sort of cut, as a put down. They never make fun of themselves. They're all up in their own heads. We dislike them. However, Barack Obama got voted in twice, and Donald Trump continues to lead on the Republican side. Go figure. I just don't get it. There's something there that I don't understand. Usually we reject people in our social lives who are like that. But when it comes to politics, it seems most people line up and can't wait to vote for these kinds of people. I don't get it. But good on Ted Cruz. Very funny video there. Jimmy Carter. I don't know how many times I've talked about Jimmy Carter since I started doing this show for Red State Talk Radio. It can't be very many. It can't be very many. Maybe 20 times. It's usually in the context of Barack Obama has just been Jimmy Carter's second and third terms. He came out and said, this is the kind of endorsement as a politician you don't want to get. He says, videotaped somewhere, I don't know where he was talking, but I watched it. He would endorse Donald Trump over Ted Cruz because it seems to him that Donald Trump is more malleable. That's a great word. I know that's the first time I've used that word on this show. Malleable. M-A-L-L-E-A-B-L-E. Fantastic word. And that's exactly what who Donald Trump is. In fact, that's probably the main difference between him and Barack Obama. Their personalities are very much the same. Barack Obama, immalleable. Donald Trump, about as malleable as you can get when it comes to somebody who wants to be president of the United States. Even more malleable than Hillary Clinton or John Kerry. It's not even close. But Jimmy Carter said that about him, and it just goes to show one thing. No matter how old, Jimmy Carter is well into his 80s now. It's obvious to me his brain works just fine. If he would have used that kind of intelligence when he was president, he might have gotten elected for a second term. And I see that Ted Cruz has already put that together into a 30-second soundbite as a political ad. And I guess it's running in New Hampshire. I don't live there, so I don't know. But I'm guessing that it's running there right now. And I'm sure that's going to be an ad that Ted Cruz is going to use as long as he's running for president. And he will use it until Donald Trump, either he has to drop out or Donald Trump drops out. As a Republican, you do not want to get an endorsement from Jimmy Carter, especially that way. In the context of, well, this Donald Trump guy, well, we can work with him. We know he's going to change his ideas over here and over there, and that's what malleable means. He can just, like clay, we can just form him into anything that we want. And Jimmy Carter's right. So that's a bit of good humor, and I've been on a few conservative sites that have gotten a lot of laughs regarding that. Because why? We as conservatives, that's what we've been saying about Donald Trump since last summer. And I hate to agree. Normally I would not like agreeing with Jimmy Carter. But this time, I got to tell you, I enjoy it. I really do enjoy it. Before I go, there's also one thing I want to check out. I'm not going to be able to talk about it too long because I only got a minute and a half. I want you to check out hotair.com. This very interesting interview with Matt K. Lewis, who is a guy that I've told you about him before. Don't run into his articles that much, but when I do, I agree with him. It's like he's reading my brain. He's inside my head. He has ESPN. He's reading Ed Dentzel's brain in Deer Beach, Florida. Because he writes what I would write if I was writing those articles. Well, he is on Hot Air in an interview with Jazz Shaw and somebody else, and I forget who it was. They get into a discussion and a slight argument about gatekeepers and the gate crashers becoming the gatekeepers regarding conservatism and Donald Trump. And Matt K. Lewis despises Donald Trump just like I do. And what it means when regular people get behind a person like that. Fascinating discussion. I'd love to talk about it more, but I'm running out of time. You should check that out at hotair.com. Maybe I'll get to it on Monday. But you've been listening to the Dentzel Domain on Red State Talk Radio. You can find my books at Amazon.com. Just do a search for Edward Dentzel there. You can email me at edwarddentzel@reagan.com. My Twitter feed is Dentzel Domain, all one word, no space in between. You can go to edwarddentzel.com where you can find all of my old Red State Talk Radio shows. You can also find them in the iTunes Store in the podcast section at SoundCloud, Podbean, and YouTube. You can also go to edwarddentzel.com/book to download the first chapter for free of my next book, The Comebacks. You can also find me on Facebook and LinkedIn. You've been listening to the Dentzel Domain on Red State Talk Radio. Have a great weekend, everyone.